Hi everyone, welcome to Babbling Irons. It's myself and Sloth today. We're going to talk about the wonderful performance that we saw yesterday against Crystal Palace. Obviously, I say wonderful, but really, it was awful. Once again, an awful performance under David Moyes for West Ham. But we'll try and have some positives if we can find them. But yeah, stay tuned, guys, and we will cover the Crystal Palace game in all its glory and misery. So Sloth, we played Palace, London derby, and I think they had the worst London derby record in the Premier League. Faced us, and now they're drawn with us. So yeah, they've got I think only 2 wins in London derbies this season. Funnily enough, both wins against us. So yeah, that was a great weekend start, wasn't it? I think.
Just the frustration that I was feeling for the rest of it. I felt so sorry for my girlfriend because I was watching it and I thought, no, you just always know there's going to be something against Palace as well. It's one of those games. And as soon as it got to, I was just like, I'm so mad. I'm so mad.
Yeah.
And luckily, I said to you, I went to the gym after because I was just so annoyed. And it wasn't even the commentators were really trying to oversell it, and it's a great end-to-end game, and if you're a neutral, it's like there's a difference between a great game and a game. Like, it was pretty turgid football from a West Ham point of view, and they just carved us open so easily. Like, there's a few really good passes, but I wouldn't say there was like it. I wouldn't say they played total football or anything. You know, they just turned up and were better than us, and it was a real kind of the result masks the fact that it was not a fun game to watch, really.
No, exactly. Well, we'll get into that, but before we get to the lineups, so I think the lineups were probably as you kind of would expect, really, from us. Only the change really down the left side in Emerson and Fornals. Again, Fornals played out of position. Really difficult for him, I think, in that kind of position, especially when you're playing against pace. And when you've got the likes of Eze and Elise coming down that side, who will rotate and move about. Again, Elise, a player me and you both said for quite a while we should have signed. Now, touted as a £50 million player. Again, Eze, another player that me and you said, but the club obviously went for Benrahma. In fairness, I do think that Moyes was meant to have been more to Eze, but allowed them to move for Benrahma, which is frustrating. And that's nothing on Benrahma. It's just the fact that Eze is a very good player who can play in multiple positions and can play in midfield. If we had Eze in our midfield yesterday with Paqueta and with Rice, no context.
The Benrahma discussion out the way.
Yeah, let's do it now. I know you want to say something, so let's just do it now.
I really don't know where to go with him because I've said for a long time. I've said it all season, and since you joined, really, I like him, and he is creative. He does get you goals and assists, but it just masks the fact that I personally think overall he hinders the team to certain degrees. Now, I don't think it's necessarily his fault because, as I said, he creates and he tries things. He's the sort of player that West Ham fans of old, with Benayoun and all the skillful players, even, Tony Cottee behind me in the West Ham shirt, skillful players who showed a lot of ability. And I might get slated for making that sort of comparison, but it's just in the terms of they showed a bit about themselves and they showed skill and ability. But he's got absolutely zero pace. He's just got that quick burst to get away from a man, and that's not enough. And his delivery is so inconsistent We saw it at the very
better on his left foot, which is the thing that has surprised me. Is his left foot seems to be far more predictable and consistent at the moment when he's crossing than with his right.
Now, I kind of my lasting hope that he would come. He thrives in a system, and even last season he was great. There's no discussion about that. However, certain elements of his game do really need to improve, and they haven't. So, in that BMW system with Watkins and Mbeumo around him, he was able to create, and he was able to latch on to the things that they created with that pace they have. And in Bowen, we have another inconsistent crossover finisher. And, I don't think that's harsh to say. He was anonymous yesterday, and that kind of plays into the fact that both of our kind of starting wingers or better wingers are very inconsistent in their end product. And we have Mikhail Antonio in that discussion, who is the definition of inconsistent with his end product. And I just think he's a good conduit in terms of making things happen and playing through him. But I don't think he is the answer that we need. And I would look to keep him. I made quite a heated tweet yesterday where I was basically just saying sell him. But then 5 minutes later, you think we're going to have a huge summer of change. So we need some sort of stability in this squad. And if we keep Benrahma, there's a chance that we can attract more African players and more players from that area. And, there's a couple in the Premier League that I quite like, or who are at risk of going down and don't have European football. We could possibly look to tempt away, but we need a bit of stability. So I would keep him. I just kind of think he's not what we need. He's a great option to have, but he's not what we need to start with, or what we really need to look to win us a game, because he just doesn't really have that in him. I think he can create what Moyes loves in moments where he can take a good free kick, he can beat a man and create a chance, but he doesn't give you that confidence that he's ever going to do that consistently, or that he's going to finish consistently. With his penalties, yeah, sure, but we'd actually have to win a bloody penalty for that to happen. So
yeah, and you say at the moment, from open play, the goals have really dried up for him. I know that's been a bone of contention for some people, and they kind of use it as a battering stick. Goal is a goal, regardless of where it's scored from. At the end of the day, one of the players who we've said before, Bowen, who seems to get never any criticism, had missed a number of penalties for us, and that has actually cost us games. So whilst Rama's maybe not contributing from open play, he's then from the spot where we need him to, he has. So it's easy to criticise in some respects about the open play contributions in terms of goals, but we have players that should be scoring penalties that haven't this year. So a penalty is a different kind of beast. And we've got someone who can at least take a penalty, which is also good. But, it's slightly digressing away from the match. But, I don't think we started very well. Yes, we got the early goal, but we were leggy from the first minute. Palace's movement, Decore just sat there and just found Eze and Schlopp. Schlopp just worked hard, just ran hard every single time. And I know people will then say, yes, but they have a week off. It's irrelevant. You're professional footballers. You have to be fit. And the manager then has to rotate. Just blaming the players, saying, well, the players were tired. Then that's not on them then, is it? If they are tired and they are struggling to get around the pitch and their legs are heavy and leggy, that's on the manager to then recognise that and to change it before the game. Instead, failed to, went with them, played them. They looked, and I put it out after about, I think, the first 20 minutes, that we looked like a team that, one, can't deal with any type of pace from an opposition, for one, and two, that just are leggy and running on empty. And obviously we got the goal, and the goal was against the run of play. No, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. It was a decent corner, went into the back post area. Crystal Palace were a bit confused because we absolutely piled in that 6-yard area, made it really difficult for Johnson. And it's a very good finish from Souček. And that's his first goal for West Ham since August. That's insane. And in that time, he's been incredibly poor, with a little flutter of improved form in recent weeks. But he's been incredibly poor, and yet has never been out of the team. And yesterday, gets his goal. Great. Well done. You've got your goal. That's all good. We then go and concede 2 very sloppy goals. And then he goes and just dallies on the ball, gets tackled by someone half his size who outmuscles him, and then slots it in. It was just like...
I will say, personally, I think that's a Gued's fault. That a hospital pass. And if there's a big shout of, man on, or like, just take one touch, but we all know Souček doesn't have that technical ability to do that. So
again, he doesn't have technical, but he has a physical frame in which to protect the ball better, and that's what he didn't do. He didn't protect the ball. It was just poor.
What
first half was just poor.
What frustrates me the most, well, is that we could see they were very tired, and I know that's not an excuse. As someone who quite likes basketball, I for that sport to see that they constantly produce time and time again, and they do that because of rotation. It's key in that sport because they have so many games. It's such a short amount of time. They rotate constantly, and that's something that we should be doing, but we don't. Now, just to move on slightly, the issue with Souček that I have is that I've been a big defender of him because, as I said, he's a blunt instrument, and he was the blunt instrument yesterday. With some reward to a degree. However, when you have a London derby and you have a West Ham fan on the bench who knows exactly what it means to the club, to the fans, and let's face it, look, I'm not the biggest fan of Downs. He seems like a really nice guy, but I said openly when we signed him, this is a waste of money because we could get better value. And I thought that there were different things we needed in a centre mid or in the midfield area. Now,
it felt a bit to me at the time when we signed him, though. It was, he's available and he's a homegrown player. We need a homegrown player. Go get him. And that's what it felt like. And again, no disrespect to Downs because he has tried, but he's just, as me and you have said,
he's not
people talk him up to. It's just simple truth.
But he's also not been given the chance, in fairness to him. So while we can say, he's not the level, he's not really been given the chance to prove that, And when he has been, like with Paqueta, he's been played further forward. And you think, this is a guy who's been an out-and-out defensive midfielder for almost his entire career, and yet you're playing him further forward. You're asking him to do the pressing and the chasing. And it just points again back to baffling man management from Moyes. And
see, I haven't got a problem with putting him as a focal point from a pressing point of view, but then from when we're in any possession, it then needs to be reset and it needs to then be dropping. But it doesn't. And I think yesterday we just saw that team was so leggy, insecure, not knowing what to do. Like the goal where obviously Emerson comes out and he looks to hesitate, but it's really because the ball's bounced off him. He kind of goes forward. He's like, well, if I come completely out, it's an easy passing behind. And then he gets caught in that no man's land, and then it just looks like a poor decision. And it's played in behind. Obviously, again, I can't blame Soufal in some regard because he does the right thing. He's dropping back to protect the line. That's what you're taught to do. He had a choice, and I'm going to drop on the line and try and protect that line. Zaha's completely open. Could you argue that maybe Bowen should have tracked back a bit more and maybe got in a position? Yes. Again, the argument would be, well, it's not his man. But again, I also look at that as, well, that's slope his shoulders. I hate this conversation in football that it's not your man. It's not your job. It is your job. You are 11 players on the field and you play for each other. If your teammate is struggling and you don't get back, that's on you. That's not my man. That's his fault. No, that's actually also your fault, because you've decided that in a team, your individual want and desire, which is not wanting to track back and not wanting to get into a position to help your teammate, is better than helping your teammate.
It's also just common sense. Like with the Matip goal we conceded against Liverpool. Just common sense dictates that you don't put Benrahma on the 6'3" Matip. Yet everyone who was around him didn't think I should keep an eye on him.
Antonio comes and walks up to him as well. I was talking about that in the review of the Liverpool game. Comes up, talks to him, has a discussion. You can see he clearly wasn't comfortable, and there's not one point where any of those players went, "Wait, let's swap. Yeah. We need to swap positions here." But anyway, that's digression. But it just
sense, and it brings us back to this fact that there doesn't seem to be any work rate for the team in the sense of it's a very rigid system at the moment. That's your man, you take them, and there's no.
But there's always more. There's more effort when we play against a bigger team. That's what frustrates me. That against Arsenal, players probably would have dropped back quicker, got into better positions. And I'm not blaming Bowen for that goal. It's just an example of if a player chooses a different action. And I know I'm picking up Bowen there, but it's only because it's on that right hand side of the goal where it was. But the same can be said for so many players. You make a different decision, you make a harder run, things change, and we don't. In games, in these ones like against Palace and so on, we just seem to physically, we don't seem to have enough about us in the game. Mentally, we don't seem to be set right either. And the problem is we were turgid in possession. We gave the ball away so much. It was ridiculous. And the reason it was end-to-end football is because we were from back to front all the sodding time because we couldn't hold the ball. And I kind of can't blame defence in some ways because as soon as you went into that midfield, the ball just went anywhere. They were so ineffective. Rice, Paqueta, Souček. I know Souček got a good rating, but that's a good rating because he scored a goal and then he got 2 flick-ons at 2 corners. If it wasn't for those corners, quite simply, West Ham would have been absolutely smashed. And we lost the game ultimately because of a really shit penalty that got given against us. It wasn't a penalty, but as I've said time and time again, you do not give these referees in this league a decision to make because half the time they can't wait to make a decision like that. Obviously, we saw the difference in the last game against Liverpool. That was a penalty. I think it was even on BT Sport. Robbie Savage was talking about it outright, saying it's an absolute howler against Liverpool, absolute howler in this game from the ref. And there was an ex-referee, I can't remember his name, was also saying, yeah, they are poor decisions both times.
Who was it?
Sorry, I don't know if it was. I can't remember who it was who was saying it. But yeah, it was just, it was a bad decision. Again's hand is out. He doesn't hold. It's not enough contact for him to go down. And the moment Eze feels the slightest touch, he's already fallen. When they bought it, and it's just...
It's a tap tackle. It's like what I used to play in rugby, like before you ball tackle as a kid. You get a tap on the hip, or you'd get a tap on the shoulder, and he felt a tap and he went down. And quite frankly, as a grown man, you should be embarrassed that you go down like that.
Oh yeah, we went down screaming as well.
Okay. But you give him the chance to do that, he's going to do it. And I just think the state of refereeing as it is as well, it's going to get given. They're not going to overturn it, even though they did take a look at it. I was sat there going, surely someone's got the common sense to say that's clearly not a penalty. It's obvious.
Yeah. There's not enough contact in which to.
But they've gone, well, we can't determine if there's contact or not, so it's not enough to overrule it. Well, I'm sorry, if you're sitting there as a referee, as an adult, looking at that and going, I don't know if that's enough for a penalty. You either haven't played football, you either haven't sport in your life, or you are just totally inept at your job. And I keep coming around to this, and I keep talking about it. It's number 3. They are all totally inept at their job, and it doesn't bring me any satisfaction to, as I've said many times as well. I was a referee when I was in my teens, and I immediately took the exam as soon as I could, and I hated it, absolutely hated it, because you get absolutely zero respect from the players, you get zero respect from the parents who bring them, you get zero respect from even just the basics of the people who tend to run the club. If you don't get anywhere to change normally, 9 times out of 10 you don't have anywhere that you can get changed, and it really does make you wonder about the type of person who is at the top of refereeing now, how kind of self-aggrandizing and patronizing they have to be, because you have to build up a wall. You can't go into refereeing and survive and build your way all the way up in the tier system that they use, and the way that you get your rankings to officiate at the very highest level. You can't be a nice person. You can't just stand there and go, right, this is why I've given the decision, and hold up a minute, we're going to look back at this. Don't come any closer to me. Like these referees get pushed around, and they basically allow it to happen because they think, I'm better than you, and they put their arm out and they don't do anything about it, instead of actually going, don't touch me, don't give me 5 yards of space. If you give me 5 yards, then we'll end it here. If you don't give me 5 yards, it's a yellow card, which it should be. They do not apply the laws of the game as it stands. They pick and choose when they want to, and
they hide behind interpretation. Let's face it, they hide behind interpretation and grey areas in most cases.
The thing that I will say for Europe in terms of sounded a bit Brexit there, didn't I? This is about the the European handball rule is that, you know, the laws around that are very clear. If it hits your hand, it's a penalty. And, you know, I understand the frustration with that. However, it removes all doubt. It completely doubt. And, you know, it's one of those where if someone goes, oh, it's his arm's in a natural position. Okay, well, yeah, but there's also going to be 20 other shouts where someone goes, oh, that's a natural position. And yet someone goes, well, I disagree with that. So it's open for interpretation. Just remove any doubt from the call. If it hits the arm, it's a handball. None of this shoulder bollocks. It's complete nonsense. If it hits your arm, it's a handball. Now, if there's any doubt whatsoever, if it hits the sleeve line, you know, you can say, fair enough, it's hit the sleeve line. However, if there's doubt there, sorry, it's hit the arm. It's a penalty. So that's where I think the referees, the PGMOL, need to really move towards just removing all doubt. But
it does feel a bit like protecting their own a bit at times.
It's a boys' club, and that's what it has to be at the end of the day, because that's the type of person it attracts at the highest level. The people who only want to mix among themselves, and they don't want to talk to the outside because they have worked so hard to get there and taken so much people that they don't want to explain themselves. They don't want to have the discussion. And that's just the type of person that refereeing attracts, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I think, you know, there's been a lot of talk throughout the season about West Ham have been unlucky. Me and you said it. No, we haven't. We've been deservedly beaten in pretty much every game we've been beaten. There's only 3 games now I would actually say we have been unlucky in the sense of a decision has impacted us negatively on a result. That being the Chelsea one with the correct goal ruled out. Liverpool, absolute stonewall penalty. Player was out of control, leading into what then resulted in hitting his arm not once, not twice, but 3 times. Player was out of control, regardless whether his arm's in a brace position. He was out of control, leading to that incident to happen. That's a penalty. And then, obviously, in this game, that was not a penalty from Eze. He was already going down the moment the arm was out. But as we say, it's a bad defending in a way should be punished. We were punished for that, but it was just a game where we were sloppy, you know.
And look, just for any sort of talk of bias, we're not saying that we haven't the receiving end of them.
No, exactly.
Laws are not fit for purpose anymore. I'd say aren't fit for purpose, and I'd say the people operating VAR aren't fit for purpose, because it's very clear that VAR is what's needed, but the people using VAR are inept.
Exactly. I think it needs more support from actual players as well, because whilst a player will know if a player is simulated, they will know if a player has left something in on a challenge as well. Yes, they need to be directed.
Like they can have bias, and that is what you're. Anyone at the top, anyone within that organization, they'll go, we have to remove bias from all of this. Oh, so it's matter that Mike Dean doesn't like every other club under the sun, but he likes Manchester United. It doesn't matter that if you remove all bias, then you have to go, then refs will go off the environment and the atmosphere that they feel, because that's just human nature. If you are refereeing a game and you are afraid to make a call at any point, you're not fit for the job.
Yeah,
but that's the problem, is that these referees should have no bias. We all know they do to some degree, but even this idea of bringing in ex-players to help with giving decisions. Well, I'm afraid half the ex-players don't know anything about the laws. I'm not trying to be mean, they just don't. And then they have an element of bias because of who they used to play
with. Off the clubs, yeah.
Now, I don't really care, to be honest. If you make VAR really transparent, and then you have, say, let's think ex-West Ham player, you have Marlon Harewood on the VAR. I don't know why I picked him, but you got Marlon on the VAR, and he goes, no, you know what? He's made a bit of a meal of that there, to a decision against West Ham. And then at the other end, he's got the chance to make the decision for West Ham. It can add that bias. However, it's very difficult to make it fair without making it transparent. Like if you look at the system recently, they've started putting the referees mic'd up and you can actually hear what they're saying. It's brilliant. It does out. And I do think that the referees have to be a lot more transparent. Imagine if we'd had the mics on when there was the official against for Liverpool against Robertson with the elbow. If you have a mic there, the situation becomes a lot clearer.
Yeah.
So why aren't they mic'd up? Why aren't we making it a lot clearer for everyone, the football fans, and also the PGMOL to review it and say, right, in this game, you said this. Why did you say it? Explain yourself, and then we can move forward and look to either reward you for it, give you punishment, whatever it might be. But it's just not fit for purpose. And yeah, I mean, we can sit here and moan about VAR, but I personally feel like the club who've been hit the most by it is Brighton. I think that I've had some absolutely disgusting calls against them, which have nothing but ineptitude in how they're applied. And yeah, we were very unlucky with the VAR call yesterday, but I think it masks the facts that we were just awful. in defence.
And that was going to be my next point.
And, we were talking about the lack of pace for what seems to be week on week. Well, who did we face yesterday? Zaha, and he absolutely tore us to pieces. It was embarrassing at times. And
Eze as well, he's got good pace. He burst through our midfield. We had Elise on the other side again. We're giving these players too much time, and obviously then the old counter was, well, if you get close to them, they can also beat you. It's like, so the answer is to do nothing and just get beat anyway. It's like essentially you compound the situation just by being inactive, and it's just symptomatic of West Ham to be passive and expect to still prevent problems. And that's the point. Why I never bought into we've turned a corner. You take out the playing against League One and Championship level teams that we have in Europe, and let's be brutally honest, that is what it is. We've played League One teams, bar playing on the left and Ghent. They are the only two teams with any kind of level, and they were Championship level. So, in all honesty, that isn't praiseworthy. A Premier League manager of a Premier League team should be smashing those teams. That isn't praiseworthy. Praiseworthy is getting to a final and winning. That's a minimum. That is the minimum. I don't care what anyone thinks or says about it. It's not praiseworthy to be beating these teams. We should be beating them. That's all I'm going to say on that. And our game yesterday was symptomatic of our season. Lacking pace, lacking energy, lacking any real clear patterns of play, any real understanding of what to do under any kind of pressure whatsoever from the opposition. And the response is, we hit it long and let's try and rely on set pieces. Had we not actually changed what we've been doing at set pieces recently, we would have been smashed 4-0, probably. Probably would have been 4-0 yesterday. We didn't look like scoring from open play because it was just, we'll twat it upfield and see what happens. That was it. Antonio was isolated. He managed to get, he managed to get goals because obviously at set pieces, he managed to get his goal. But other than that, he was isolated, couldn't get the ball into him, couldn't get him to run channels, couldn't get anything into his feet. Bowen was non-existent. Benrahma got the ball, but was wasteful when he had it. We made a couple of nice little passes, but really nothing happened. Again, Fornals couldn't even get into the game. Playing on the left-hand side. What a surprise. Couldn't really get into a game. We have players on the bench like Lanzini, who always seems to have a brilliant game against Palace. Doesn't even get a single minute. Clearly he's leaving, but we keep putting him on the bench. Why put him on the bench? If you don't want to use him and he is going and he is gone in your mind, don't put him on the bench. It is fucking pointless. You might as well go. It's just, there's so much about it that's pissing me off at the moment. And all of this, all of a sudden, jump back into, Moyes is taking us forward. He's fucking taking us nowhere. I'm not being funny. We got a draw against Arsenal. Fantastic. We looked a bit better in that game. Newcastle, we got absolutely smashed to pieces. We beat Bournemouth. Sorry, we should be fucking beating Bournemouth. Fulham, we should be beating Fulham. The teams that we won against, big fucking deal. We should beat them. We got a much better team. Shouldn't be praiseworthy to all of a sudden play well. And since January, we've won 5 games, lost 5, drawn 4. What fucking thing has he turned around? Because 5 games won in this period. Because what? He's won 5 games more than he won in the last fucking quarter of the year or half of the year.
He's turning around like I was in the hallway. It's like this. He's just going back and forth and not really.
He's turning it around. What? He's fucking turning in the Suez Canal. That's what he's doing because it's just fucking gone on a diagonal now and we can't really go anywhere. It's just it's all just bollocks.
It's the biggest frustration is just how poor his man management is, and the decisions he makes in games are just absolutely abysmal. The
decisions he makes in the transfer market, Danny fucking Ings. I saw Nike can't over you, but I'm so just pissed off with this whole shit. We said at the time, fucking waste of money. I know I keep swearing. Sorry about that, but it was an absolute waste of money. We said it wouldn't work. Yes, he might get goals. We said he will probably score goals. I think he scored 4, but he doesn't fit the system, doesn't fit what he wants. And those going, well, it's from David Sullivan, or it's because they've heard the word of gift. Gifts work 2 ways, by the way. It's not just a gift. Sullivan doesn't just do gifts where it's, I've bought you this player because I think he's good. he also does gifts where when Zola turned around and goes, buy me Benny McCarthy and I'll keep you in the Premier League. He turned around, well, I gave him that gift because he wanted him. And if I didn't give it to him, I'd be seen as not supporting him. Same happened with Danny Ings. Moyes wanted Ings. He tried to sign him before at Real Sociedad. Tried to sign him again. This time he did. He was a gift given to the manager to show support to the manager. So I will give you this player, but you have to keep us up.
But it's another example of of Moyes signing players, completely misusing them, and not understanding how to get the best of them.
Yep.
What bothers me as well is that it's also now damaging potential careers. And I know that's very early to say, and people might call it reactive, but what's the point of having a young forward like Mubama going for fun at his level? And let's face it, looks to be offering a lot more in games than Antonio. We were just talking about how Ings has failed, and yet I hate to seem like I'm just picking on Antonio, because I'm not. But what my biggest problem is, people keep talking about him like he's completely untouchable. Oh, he's a West Ham legend. You can't say this, you can't say that. Well, I'm sorry, he's a forward who his maximum record for us has scored 10 goals. People might say, oh, he's a makeshift forward. Well, that's fine, but you still need to score goals. He's got 10 in a season, and that's his record. It's unacceptable at this level. Unacceptable. And I sound like Earl Lemongrab, but it's this. We excuse mediocrity time and time again. We're doing it with Cresswell now, and we see so many fans doing it. Yet he's going to get a new contract. We are settling for people giving us mediocrity because
we need to get the left side sorted, but let's settle for Cresswell. So that means we're going to move on Emerson. Then that's what you're saying.
Yeah,
we've got to find a suitor for Emerson. So, in actual fact, you're probably better off letting a player that can actually go because his contract's gone, keeping the player that you potentially can't sell because no one's going to want to buy him. We don't know if anyone's going to buy him. Either we sell him at an absolute loss, or you let the guy go who's been a good servant. Thank you very much. Off your top, mate. We're going to go get a top young talent from Europe, the likes of, say, Truffert from Rennes, as an example.
Apparently.
Yeah, £15 million. Yeah, exactly. It's just, or even euros, so even a bit less. But as you say, it's that settling for mediocrity. And yesterday, that's what it was. We settled for mediocrity, and in the way we played. I know Moyes was saying, "Oh, I don't think we didn't do very well. We didn't get the first ball. We didn't make the second. We didn't make." Well, then add more energy. Change something. Don't just remove two players and then play in exactly the same way. If you're losing the first and second balls, maybe stop trying to play it long and then trying to play off the first, the second, the third ball. Maybe drop the team back a bit further, compact the team, make it more difficult for them to win those battles. But no, we played exactly the same way, expected a different result. Have we not seen this all season? And we keep saying, oh, we turned it around. Because we won a couple of fucking games against teams we should be beating. Like, the football hasn't changed. We were shit against Fulham. But yet people going, yeah, but we won it and we were decent. How were we decent? Couldn't make 5 fucking passes. Like,
yeah.
I genuinely feel like, a bit like Mugatu. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I genuinely do. Like, we'd not turned it round, and the constant talk about, yeah, but look what we're doing in Europe. We're beating League One teams. Like, why is that something to be proud of? We're beating League One teams. I'll be proud as punch if we win the competition. I've said the whole way through, I want us to win the competition, and I value the competition. But we're beating League One teams. We played 2 championship teams and beat them comfortably. This isn't something to be proud of, really.
The thing that worries me, and I think could well be a surprise for West Ham fans, is that Alkmaar and Basel or Fiorentina, who we could potentially face, are levels above what we've played so far. So, I really wouldn't be surprised if we struggle. But people will go, he's reached a European semi-final 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. But also, who's to say as well, some of this stuff isn't just because the players have got, have actually upped their game, or the players have taken it on themselves. Like we've talked about it before, and we've known of other players in the past who've said, yeah, look, we started not believing in the manager. We took it upon ourselves. Our results didn't only improve after the players on their own went and had a conversation with themselves away from anything to do with the club and the staff. So again, our form improved when the players took responsibility. The manager will ultimately take credit, obviously, when results are improving, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's all the manager. And I'm not just having a pop at Moyes because I don't want him to be at the club. I'll praise him if we win games. I'll criticise if we don't. But the simple fact of the matter is, in those other games, those players played up, and he did well from a manager's perspective in terms of the subs. Against Arsenal, we did think he could have maybe gone for it a bit more, but he got the point. You have to praise him for that. But in games like this, changed nothing, played exactly the same way, lumped it forward, hoped for a free kick or a corner. And had we not scored from those corners, or had our form been like it was, we would have walked away from it going, what a shit show. And it would have been rightly called over. And I was really positive yesterday for us in our little group anyway, saying about us being safe, because I do think we are still safe. I know it sounds ridiculous with 5 games to go and only, 5 points clear. I do think we're safe because I do think we can get another 3 points between now and the end of the season, which should see us okay. But the truth of the matter is, the football hasn't improved very much. And the outpouring of, look how well we've done, it wasn't over a sustained enough period. If we continued that all the way to the end of the season, in that same manner, I would admit that. And whilst, yes, every team can have a blip and a bad game, that wasn't a bad game. That was West Ham from all of this season, apart from a small period where we had a good cluster of games, and we had a cluster of games in April where we played well. And that has changed people's perceptions, or augmented people's perceptions a little bit, because they saw some level of positivity. But the truth is, all those problems were still there. It just takes a game to unearth it for everyone to see it. Now, we'll probably play better against City because it's City. Probably play well against Man United because it's Man United. It's not because of the players are playing up, it's not because all of a sudden the manager's gone, oh, I know exactly what we're doing now, lads. We're doing this, this, and this. You just got to look at how certain individuals in that team are so poor consistently to know it's not just because they're bad players. And it's not that the manager's making them all work as a team. No, he's got a group of players that are just about performing and doing well. Rice and Biketa have been a massive reason of that. Zuma had been a massive reason. How Zuma's probably out for the season, most likely.
Yeah.
Soufal has been good, but again, he's been having little rickets in games where you still go, it's a bit of a concern, but ultimately the overall of his game has been good. I'm sorry, but there's not enough that has been happening that warrants all of the praise that was coming. You have, you acknowledge the points that have been coming in, and you can acknowledge the fact that there has been a performance, but the level of praise or the absolute swing back so quickly to, well, maybe we should trust him, it's just, for me, was just mind-boggling, because what we've seen all year, we're going into the next season under exactly the same thing, probably but needing more players. And you want to entrust that to someone who's shown so badly how he can't bring in players. And the one player he did bring in was Danny Ings. He's been freaking invisible the entire time. Came on yesterday, put him in the front two. It looked like he just literally went, oh yeah, I'm just going to chuck that front, mate. We'll probably hit it long, try and get on any knockdowns from Antonio if you can. But yeah, maybe even try that. And then he takes Antonio off. It frustrates me. Obviously, you can tell I'm really frustrated. I'm probably not being in any way analytical, probably being completely irrational, but it's just got to that point where I just can't be asked to be nice about it and just kind of be positive about stuff that isn't things that we should be positive about. I think my mama got an injury on Friday, probably why he wasn't as well. But again, I always see this, well, we can't just throw the young lads in. Why? Why not?
Yeah.
We need to know when we can trust these lads next year. We might have to build a team, or these guys be part of our team next year. How are we going to know that they can even play? You need to test them in environments that are not just, oh, well, we're 3-0 up, we're winning a game. What would you learn from a player in that situation? Nothing. You learn more from a player how they strive to turn things around and how much they work. And I've said it before, I do think Danny Ings is trying his hardest. He's just in a system that doesn't suit him, and he just is practically invisible. But Bammer is more of a Moyes striker than Danny Ings is, yet the kid kind of get a chance, and he's not even getting rewarded for having a fantastic season, scoring goals. Why can't Kadua even be on the bench? If you're not going to play Lanzini, put Kadua on the bench. He could come on as a right wing option to Bowen, Cornet. If it's not working on the left hand side, man, I know Cornet's massively out of form, but give him more than 5 freaking minutes. Put him on the left wing and just say, the next 2 or 3 games, you're starting. You're going to play at least 60 minutes in both those games, but you're going to start in both those games. Go and make a point. So I don't then have. So after those 2 games, I have to play you to see the season out. We don't do that. We just go, no, I'm going to stick with Old Faithful, stick with the old guard. That'll do me. They'll get me through now. And I just don't see what all this praiseworthy stuff is at the moment. And game against Palace just absolutely punctuates the point to me as to how we are so lost as a football club. And yes, the players were tired, but that level of tiredness shouldn't account for even just the lack of being able to pass 2 or 3 passes together and the constant just hitting it long, not being able to win pretty much any second or third ball. Palace should have absolutely smashed us yesterday. We were lucky that they couldn't defend from set pieces. If they could defend from set pieces, we would have got the battle that we deserved. But I'm going to stop there because I've had a massive rant. I'm going to hand over to you to kind of bring back some sort of semblance of positivity or whatever.
I think you pretty much summed it up, and I don't really think there's too much more to add, rather than, I think yesterday showed the ineptitude of Moyes' man management and just how late he leaves everything, but also how inept his substitutions are when they are made. Bringing Danny Ings on, all well and good, if you actually play him in the system, but also when you're playing him up against someone like Anderson, who absolutely pocketed Antonio yesterday. Like, in open play, Antonio got absolutely nothing. And he was pretty anonymous, but he got absolutely nothing off Anderson. He got nothing off the referee as well, but that's here nor there, because it doesn't matter if you can't create a chance yourself. And for him to sit back and go, do you know what this game needs? It needs Danny Ings, or it needs 5 minutes of Cornet, is just absolutely abysmal. And again, when you're looking at performers on the pitch and you're there watching the game and you don't take off the people who need it, that really worries me. Going into the game against AZ, going into the games we've got left in the Premier League season, I don't really have much confidence at all that we will get results. And I said against Bournemouth, I don't really think it's the game that sees us safe, just because I've seen West Ham play in terms of how much we leak goals and how we can go to Manchester City and we might get a point, or we might go to United and get a point. In fact, I don't think we'll get anything at Manchester City. I take that back. We could go to Man United and get a point, but I don't know in what universe anyone can have confidence that David Moyes' West Ham will turn up against Leeds, who will be scrapping for their lives, and Leicester, who will also be scrapping for their lives, get something, because they will want it more. And yeah, it does leave me worried. I think, again, we have to make changes in the summer to the coaching staff. And for me, that starts with Moyes. I just think this season has been an embarrassment. It won't be if he wins the Europa Conference League. And there will still be certain little hounds in the media who go, but he's won a European Cup. Yeah. Well, doesn't hide the fact that football has been absolutely awful. The man management has been absolutely awful. And the sheer lack of plan has completely cost us. So I go into the next week with very little confidence, as you can tell, and I just kind of hope that the players can take things into their own hands and get us a few points just to get us safe, and then on Europe. Because if we can do that, I think we stand a good chance of winning. But as I said, it will be the first time in this competition we've come up against competent sides. And I do worry a little bit about Fiorentina and Basel, because both of them are quick, physical sides, and they're in good form. Fiorentina especially are in great form. So, yeah, it does really worry me.
Yeah, as I say, I do think I still stick to that. I think we are safe. There is enough of a gap at this point in which to help us. Obviously, a big game today in Everton and Leicester. And look, the reason why I think it's safe, because this is probably the three teams. I know it's Nottingham Forest as well, but these are the three teams really that we're going against. And when you look at this, you really kind of look at Leeds and think, well, Bournemouth could be a tricky game for them. Man City, you just don't see Man City relenting on anyone. And obviously, they've got to play Everton as well. Newcastle, not many teams are getting any change out of them. Newcastle again also playing against Leicester as well. Leicester has got Liverpool. Yes, they're playing us last game of the season at home. Getting this Everton game is massive for them. Everton's running isn't great. Wolves' form kind of fluctuates. Bournemouth last game of the season, they could potentially be down by that stage. Everton, if they're still on 20 points. Again, Brighton, they've got to play. Not a team that you want to probably be playing. They dismantled. I think it was Wolves yesterday they played.
Yeah.
So I look at their games and I do think they may struggle to get wins in those ones. And obviously, Nottingham Forest yesterday was also part of this pack, and they, from a very good position, crumbled in the last 10, 15 minutes of the game and lost to Brentford, who by all accounts weren't very good. So, as I say, I can see us maybe getting 3 points. It may even just be 3 draws, but I can see us getting enough points. And I think there is enough of a gap between us, even if it's only 5 points, but 6 if you include goal difference. I know that sounds a really stupid thing to say, but technically it's 6 points because of that goal difference. As long as we keep that in a more positive frame than these guys, it is an additional point. So even if Leicester win 2 games, they're still not going to go above us because of goal difference.
Yeah.
Potentially. So that is my level of confidence at the moment, in that you don't see any of those teams probably winning 3 games between now and the end of the season. I wouldn't say. So I do think we probably have enough to at least get 1 more point or 2 points to stay up. I don't see this being a season where you need many more than 36, 37 points. Now, they could be famous last words if they do, whatever. You come at me, it's fine. I've said it. But I think we've got enough. I don't, like you, I don't have faith in Moyes' tactics. I do think they're just too much of an era that isn't really reflected in football. It can get you results in a limited period. I think over a long term, I think that then starts to become, you start to find the holes within it, because I don't think players are built to manage in those structures as much anymore. I don't think I think football and football players have moved on from there. And if you just have a team of workers, a team of grafters are not going to beat a team of skilled technicians. So that's kind of how I see it. But yeah, look, it's a terrible game. We were awful. We got the point. We got the points taken we deserved. We lost comfortably, in my opinion, by the set pieces. So yeah, I guess we do as the club's been saying all year. We go again, right? And
with that,
one last thing to say, and come on, you Irons.